There we go. All right. Everybody hears me okay? Hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm checking the levels on the mic. So the levels on the mic on the recording software are going into the yellow and not quite the red. So I don't know. Maybe it was that you were used to me talking really quiet and so, or used to me talking really loud before, so you cranked your volume down. We'll see how it comes out on YouTube. All right, you guys, let's take a look at your tile sets. I took a little bit of a preemptive look and I picked some of my favorites just from a cursory glance so that we could demonstrate them inside of Unity in a second. I'm just going to go down the list here and then through the folders, looking at all of them really briefly. So Alex has this sort of, I think it's like lava tubes sort of thing with like rocks and little bits of magma. And I think it looks really cool. I'm going to be interested to see if all of this tiles correctly when we put it in the engine because I think it looks really neat. Alex, did you check and see if it'll tile correctly? Because if you did, then that's really good. If not, then we'll see how it does. Most of it should. Okay, then we're going to see. Thank you. Salvo's got this cool retro kind of Castlevania look. We've got some fencing on the top and some nice bordered edges with these blue fill. So this is great. As a note for some of you, this is the correct way to do this lower right-hand corner. Some of you guys did it the opposite way where you only filled in the tiny center in the middle and left the rest blank. That is not correct. So this is correct, just in case you're wondering. Isaiah has got what looks like wood planks or maybe like siding on the side of a building or something. And I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work because it's all very simple, but this part in the lower right is not done correctly. That's the opposite of what we want there. Let's see, we've got Elias, has this cool kind of purple and green grass sort of pattern. It looks reasonable to me. I think it will work. This part here, usually it's more effective if you leave a small gap in the middle, but if that's how the tiling worked, then that's completely fine. Also, maybe a little bit of substance to the center tiles here. We've got all these rocks around. It'd be nice to have a couple rocks in the middle there and in these blank places. Otherwise, it's just a little bit plain. But it looks pretty nice. I think it'll work. All right, Jasmine. I don't know what this is, but I love how it looks. Is Jasmine here? Let's see. I don't see her on Discord or anything, but it looks like strawberry shortcake or maybe like some sort of alien rock or something like that. I downloaded it because I want to see how it works. It's a really interesting look. I'm not sure about the tiling. I can see some parts that seem to line up nicely, but I'm worried that the fill won't work somehow, but maybe it will. It depends on how careful she was when she did it. I will say that this part is backwards in color. So this center part would be the edges, so that should be the light pink, and this very, very light pink here. And then the outside edges would be the darkest color if this were to work correctly. So I know that part won't work. Crystal. Crystal's got a cool kind of concept. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but I can see grass and like strata of dirt, and then this layer on the top of that it's like, I don't know, concrete foundation or something like that. And then all of the floating ones are surrounded in that as well. And then this part out here, I think is the correct, no, I think it's backwards for color also, because this would be the edges, this would be the fill. So your fill, I'm pretty sure the tiling's not going to work entirely on this one because this would be the middle tile here. These are edges. So if you duplicate this middle tile, it would be grass, dirt, grass, dirt, grass, dirt, and that definitely wouldn't work. So I think maybe there was a slight confusion in what we were looking for in terms of tiling. It would probably work side to side though. It just wouldn't work in every direction. Robert, yours looks pretty good. We got some stonework and vines and stuff. I like it. Nice rounded corners, but you left in my template. Take my template out of there and you're good. And I don't see Robert. I don't know where he went. Usually he's here. All right, Yesenia, we've got a stonework sort of pattern here. I think it looks pretty cool. I think this is appropriate for the corners, but since you've got little rocks on all the other edges, these probably need at least a couple little rocks just inside of that gray triangle for it to work entirely. But you're pretty close here, and I think these will definitely work. I'm going to go ahead and download yours. One, because you're here, and another because I'm not sure how perfectly the tiling is going to work. Let's go ahead and download yours as well. There we go. All right, Andrew. Cool. I'm not sure what it is. I think it's just rock and dirt and stuff. That's what it looks like to me. No reason to expect the tiling wouldn't work. Seems like it would be okay, but this part's backwards, just like a bunch of people have done. Cool. I like this idea a lot. So this is Juan's. I like this idea a lot. I'm pretty sure the tiling won't work with the big dinosaur skeleton. With the little one, though, we've got a chance. I think the size of the tiles is going to spoil it. But I downloaded this one so we could take a look because I think it would be really cool. Depends on how carefully it was, but my guess is it won't work entirely. And then the choice of colors here is interesting, but I don't think this will work either. So we'll see. Yeah, so one thing you could do, you could take skeletons and you could put them out here where they have no background. We could do a separate pass of skeletons, or you'd have to keep them distinctly inside the tile shape. So if I do a little overlay here so you can see how wide the tiles are on that 9 grid, a skeleton would have to be entirely within one tile for it to work for sure. And then the center one, which is going to be duplicated the most, should probably be blank. Because if it's not, then there's just going to be bones everywhere. So over here on this column, this one will work, and this one will work. I just don't think the 9 grid will work, but probably this little skull on the top will, and this bone on the upper right will. Okay. And by the way, you guys can have detail that crosses across multiple tiles. That's fine. It's just that if you don't want it to repeat infinitely, then it's got to be entirely within the tile. Okay. Then Isaac had this one, which it breaks my brain. First of all, I can't tell if it's going to tile or not. I'm really interested to see if it does, though. If it does, then he did an excellent job. If it doesn't, then it's just like, okay, just didn't think about that. And this part's backwards. Okay. So those are all the loose ones. Let's go ahead and go up through the folders. Alan has got kind of a spaceship, sort of like loose circuitry kind of idea. It's a really cool idea. This should tile perfectly on the side of this 9 grid. This should tile perfectly, I think. It'll be a little conspicuous because we would just see red and purple wires over and over again, but that's fine. The top should tile fine. This would bounce up and down, up and down, up and down forever, and then eventually hit the edges. I think that's kind of a bad idea to do that because it makes it look weirder, but it will work. The columns look great, single looks great, and I think you've got this correct. That looks correct to me. Let me make sure okay, so I didn't download yours. I'm going to download yours as well because I think it'll work and it looks really promising. I'm not sure how many of these I'm actually going to do. I'm going to have to take another look through my folder. All right, so Ian. So is Ian here? Is he here in the chat? Dang, I wanted to ask him what his concept. What do you guys think this looks like?
Christmas lights.
That's what I thought. Christmas lights. Now, look at the edges. What does that look like?
Christmas sweater.
Christmas sweater. Do you think this is a Christmas light Christmas sweater? I think that's what this is supposed to be. It's supposed to be Christmas light Christmas sweater. Which is a really funny idea. So I like that. It looks like he thought about tiling because I can see the 4 plugs in here. Also, when I do a straight line across to see right where tile borders would be, there's a corresponding piece of detail there every time. So I think the tiling works with this one. It's just a really cool kind of concept to do that. All right, Aviel. So I don't know what this idea is, but it looks like it'll work. What is it supposed to be?
Nothing really. I just thought it looked nice.
Just
What I
kind of
was
a
trying
pattern?
to, yeah, the pattern. I was just
Okay.
doing whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I would have preferred some like actual theming or something, but that's fine. As long as it works and it looks like it does. I'll make sure to check it to see if it does. Very good. All right, Trevor. It's a little small. I'm not sure if this is like the correct size or not, but it looks like it's wheat or something like that, like a field of wheat. I'll have to download it so I can blow it up and take a nice, good look at it. But it seems to be executed correctly. Did a lot of you guys zoom in your tile maps when you exported them? And Trevor's the only one that didn't. Anybody?
I did on mine.
Yeah?
I exported mine at like ×4 or something like that.
I have two versions. One that's zoomed in. The other one is like the actual size.
Okay, that might mess up my demonstration that I'm going to do. I'll have to see. Rudy. Okay. It's a bit plain because it's just kind of a grid of gray rectangles. And then there's a bunch of like potpourri sprinkles like outside the tile map. So definitely clean that part up because that's not supposed to be there. But I guess it'll work. It's just kind of like it's really, really plain is all. What's this other one? Oh, you've got like reference images that don't seem to have anything to do with like the tile map. Were you going for like the brick or something?
Yeah, the one on the left hand.
Oh, okay.
On the bottom.
So to do brick, you have to offset the rows. So this row, right? All of the vertical mortar goes to the center of the next row of bricks. Otherwise, what you get is just a grid. So if you want to do bricks, you got to offset the rows. Also, adding those details would make it look a lot better.
Oh, okay.
All right. And then Nathan. So this is your ice, but you said it was hard to see, so you made this one so we could see it real easy.
Yeah.
And it looks good. I like it. Very good. You didn't want to put icicles on the bottom of this one too?
It was going over the I mean, I was thinking of doing that, like putting icicle things, but I was already thinking that the tiles down there kind of already have them, so I wasn't really thinking of doing it.
It's not like you have to. It just means that if we were trying to transition from the flat to a single column wide platform, we probably couldn't do it now.
Oh, that's true. Actually, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, and if you had, so the center of the bottom of the 9 grid would have to look like this one, like this thick, and then it could tile. Now you don't have to put icicles on all of them. It could be smooth, but it would have to be smooth the way that this one is smooth. So the tile would only extend about that far, and then it wouldn't need icicles necessarily. Then the tiling would work.
Gotcha.
So the way you've built it, they're all separate. So we've got a rectangle-ish shaped platform, a single column, a single platform, a single, but we can't mix and match them necessarily because of that.
Gotcha.
Also, you did this part backwards as well.
Yeah, so
Sure.
I actually want to explain that one.
Okay.
Because of the pattern, I was kind of afraid that that I wasn't sure if it was gonna like tile properly when when like you're putting those.
Oh wait,
parts.
you didn't do it backwards. You just didn't fill it with gray.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
transparent.
Yeah. So why'd you do that?
Yeah, I did it like that because I was thinking, and I could be very wrong, and that's why it's okay with the feedback.
Well, give me an idea. What were you doing?
So what I was thinking was that it might not look good because of because of the gray back. I don't know how to explain it, honestly. It's like I made it transparent because it'll be easier to link it to the other tiles rather than having like a block of gray, like gray at the back.
So you mean like
I
as a
did it
second
wrong.
layer of detail?
Sorry, what?
You mean as like a second layer of detail? So-
Not only that, but it kind of like, yeah, something like that. But I also felt like it might ruin the pattern within the huge square tiles.
You mean like these spiky bits on the edges? I don't think it would, because you've gotten rid of that pattern by the time you meet this center tile. And all these ones are when two of the surrounding edges are solid, as in middle gray, and then the remaining two edges have something, but this diagonal corner has nothing. That's what they're for. So I'm not, maybe you might be right about that. What you're saying about putting a second layer of detail on top of your tiles, that's totally possible. I don't think it's easier. I think it's more detail oriented. So you're going for better rather than easier. It would be easier just to fill it with the gray, but it might not look good. So just be aware of what you're trading off. You're trading off convenience for higher quality instead.
Okay, that makes sense, and that's why I kind of want to test it before I re-upload it with the gray background.
Yeah, let's see it. This one. No, wait. Sorry. This one is the real size one. So let's download that. We'll see. We'll test it. I can make a tile set that has more than one layer, so we can see if it functions. All right. So there we go. That's everybody. So very good, you guys. Let's take a look in Unity and see how these turn out. So I'm going to make a folder, I think, to contain all these tiles, because this is really annoying. And I've got my tile palette on the other screen over here. First, I'm going to show you guys what the import step looks like. I've got all of the ones that I downloaded over here in a list, just in my downloads folder. I'm going to change my view so I can see what they look like, so I can pick just a couple of them. Nathan, let's try yours first, since we were just talking about it. I'm going to drag this just right into the window, and then it should be down here. So once it's inside Unity, we get a little preview of it, and we have to change some settings to make it play nice with the tile set, and also so that it views properly. Otherwise it's going to be a little blurry, because Unity filters things to kind of compress them. So first thing I'm going to do is change pixels per unit to 32, which is what I used, sprite mode to multiple, and then wrap mode to repeat, filter mode to point, and hit apply on all of that stuff. You guys don't have to memorize any of this stuff, but we are recording in case you ever want to come back and take a look at it. That was just to get the image to look nice and to be the correct size. Then I have to go in this sprite editor, and here I have to chop it up into tiles. The way I'm going to make this work, I think, for anyone else's that may have zoomed it, is by using a grid by cell count. I think we'll do it. But for Nathan, since I think you did this at 32, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to just enter that in, grid by cell size, and just hit slice. And so it's a little hard to see on transparency, but there's these little squares going around his detail, and there's really nothing out here in the empty space. I think there's a method. There we go. So you can see the tiles as they're being chopped up here. So for cell count, I'm going to have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, it's 10 by 10, so that'll be easy. I'm going to hit apply. And so now each one of these is its own individual tile here. Okay, so I can pick any one of them, and we could just drag these into our workspace and mess with them, but that's not how the tile grid utility works. So for that, instead, I bring up my tile palette. Let's just open this a little bit more. Oh, didn't want to. There we go. Open this a little bit more, and I'm going to drag this into the tile set like that. And it says, where do you want to save this? Well, now I'm going to pick this tiles folder because it was spamming my my root here. Okay, so now they're in the tile set, and I should be able to go anywhere I want, pick one of these, and just start dropping them in. All right. So I'm going to erase out some of this stuff. And let's just make some kind of random shapes like this to see how it will work. I'm going to fill that in. Okay, so I'm going to replace all the appropriate parts wherever I can find them. And those are all okay. That, this, and here. So here we've got an opportunity to see how your system would work. So if I grab this, for instance, and pop it down here, right now what's happening is the gray is disappearing. So we need a second layer. And let's see. Yeah, what I could do is duplicate this tile map and use your second layers on the second one. So let's try that. I'm going to duplicate. We'll call this one tile map over. And I do have to set the sorting. So in the sorting, I'm going to change this one to like a positive 10. I think that'll work. All right, let's try it. So here I've got a corner piece. Maybe I went the wrong way. Let's try negative. Yeah, negative. Negative 10. Okay, so this one has gray. That one is over. Oh, we're now interacting with the background a little bit by accident. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to set this one to 0. I'll set my original one to 10. That way we won't interact with the background. I was wondering why that was happening. And let's put in your corners. Is this what you imagined?
Yeah, I kind of imagined it like that.
It almost works, right? I can't zoom my camera too much because then it starts to clip in. You just needed this extra halo bit to go around those corners also. So in your tile set, you just want to illustrate that gray halo going all the way around, and then it really would work. But at that point, I think you just need to fill it in with the dark gray.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Yeah.
After seeing you had to make a second layer, I think it would just be better to just put the gray background. But it was a good test, though.
But see, this is exactly what I would do for the one Juan had that has the skeletons. We would have to do that second layer as well. So there's perfectly valid reasons to do a second layer tile map. In fact, you could do several different layers of tile map. You could do 3 or 4 if you really wanted to. For very complicated uses. That, and you could set them to different depths so that your character interacts with them differently. So imagine if you want your player character to go behind the tile set, but the grass you want to appear in front of them, as if they're walking through tall grass. Or you might want 2 layers of grass, one behind the character and one in front, so they appear to be passing through things. That would be reasons for a second layer tile set. Okay?
Okay.
So yeah, that was interesting. Didn't quite work, but it was cool to see that it was very close. Let's download another one. I want to see the lava one because he said that one should work, and I think it will. So that one, okay, so we're up here. First thing, it is 320 by 320, so it's the correct size. So I'm going to set 32, multiple, repeat, point, apply, editor. I can do all these steps pretty quick. There we go, apply. And so now we should be ready to drop it into my palette. Where'd it go? I'm covering it up with my window. There it is. Okay. So now put those in the tile. Yep, crossing those fingers, I see that. All right, so I will erase. Oh, I'm on the second one now. Let's go back to that one. Uh-oh. What's happening? Maybe I inverted the 2 of those or something, or I was working entirely on the wrong one. Anyway, we'll work on this one, not the over one. I think that should be safer. So I'll sketch in some shapes. Put them over some of these as well. And make sure that we have some sort of interior angles to check. That should be good. So now I'll put in all of the corners I can find. And all of the sides. That one's a side. That one's a bottom corner. Corner, corner. There. Okay, oh, and that one's top. Alright, so if I zoom in nice and close, then this one needs to be an interior edge, which should be that. And yeah, that works perfectly. This one's also an interior edge. So it would be there. There we go. Oh, this one as well. Yeah, you got it. Very good. Cool. So we could do it probably with these smaller ones as well. Bottom. So the top is a single. Let's see how the single one works. This one's also a single. So there. This one's complicated. So that's a compound one. Not only is it a turning corner, it's also a bottom. So that one was just not going to work no matter what. Although, like this, it seems to be okay. This one's also a compound. Not only is it a side, it's an upper corner, but given that, it seems to work properly. And then this one's a double. This one's got a top corner and a bottom corner. So it's like neither one. We just have to pick one like that or like that, whichever one we think looks better. I think that one probably does. Okay. Cool. Very good. You did it. Way to go. All right, let's see what else. I wanted to see. Let's see, which was it? That one will work for sure. Okay, so the dinosaur one is not going to work, that I already know. I want to see the cake one. Oh, let's do the robot one, because that one looks like it's got a lot of potential.
I included a normal sized version in the folder.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go get that. All right, this one here. Right? Perfect. Let's grab that. Okay, so I'm going to drop that in. Make sure I've got the correct. This is the correct one. That's the incorrect one. So I'll delete this. Set the settings to all the stuff I've been doing. Go into the tile editor. Set it to slice it up. Yep, it all looks right. Apply it. And then drop it into my palette. So it's right here. There we go. Stick them in the tiles. And let's check. I'm gonna just scroll over here. All right, so starting with the center tile, I'll just make some weird shapes like this, and then a more standard shape like this. All right, so we'll try the standard one first. See how it works. Seems to be working. Yeah, okay. So the one weird part here is this, but that's because of how I just drew that. So not a fault of your tile set, just that I made too sharp of an angle there. We would need the lower interior corner so we can see if that works out. It doesn't quite work out with this one because I have a single tile there as well. But if this was a bottom corner, it would work. So some harder to achieve things, but mostly working out okay. And let's try the corner here. So that one, it doesn't actually line up perfectly. So what's going on? Let's see. Ah, okay. So it had to line up. I think you might have been using, or I don't know, how did you decide that this was the shape you needed?
I did test out a few like patterns with those, but I guess
What should it lead into based on your test? Like, should it lead into this, or?
it was, I think it was the
It was what?
I'd have to check. I'd have to go back and check, but I'm sure I did. I guess I'd probably just missed something.
It looks like you just need to drop the surface, or sorry, raise the surface to where this ground is, And if it was the opposite one, so let's try a bottom corner like this one works.
Yeah. That was it. I guess I neglected the other side.
You might have just mirrored it or something, like flipped
Yeah.
these, but they're not the same. Yeah, they need
Yeah.
they need a top surface to them. Okay, that makes sense, but you did get like half of them working properly. Cool. All right, nice. Very ambitious one too. Interesting pattern for that. Now I'm looking at it, I feel like I see a kitty cat and like a dog in here, like animal shapes. Probably accidental. Right on. Okay. All right, last one I'm going to do. I want to see what this cake works out to be. I'm curious, and I think maybe this one was also at a much bigger size. Yeah, so this one's 1080 by 1080, which is not the same size as our other tiles. I'm going to see if we can make it work anyway. So before, we had 320 pixel by 320 pixel tile size, or image sizes. And I'm making 32 pixels one unit. So what I have to do is I divide this by 10 to get the size of her tiles. Her tiles then are 108 pixels. So if I set this to 108 as the units, we should get tiles that are the same size as these other tiles, even though they have more pixels. Whoops, I want to set that to multiple. And we'll still set this to repeat and point. Sprite editor, slice them. Now, we could set this to 108 now that I know that. Instead, we could set it to cell count, 10 by 10. And I might end up getting a bunch of empty tiles, but that's not really a big deal. Let's check if I did. No, it's still correctly determined. Those are tiles. Now check this out. Down here, there's a couple tiles for no reason. It's because there were some filled pixels down there, and Unity automatically detected that and said, oh, you must want these to be tiles also. In this case, we don't, so I could just delete them before hitting apply. But that's one of the liabilities of using an automatic system like this. Okay, so we got our tiles. Got my tile set. Oh, come back here. Tile set. And we'll stick these in over here. They should work. Where'd your image go? There it is. Okay, yeah, they're sticking to the tiles. And we'll put them in there. Cool. All right, and we'll try it. I'm going to put this somewhere next to some other existing tiles so we can see the difference. I'll put them right in between these two. Okay. Do some shapes to see how that turns out, and maybe a more rectangular one. All right, so let's put in all these corners I can find, all the tops. It looks like the basic tiling doesn't really work either, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah, so the basic tiling doesn't look like it's actually going to work properly. So what I mean by that is that this is the side of the 9 grid here, this is the top of the single line here, and they're not matching up. So the pink pattern would have to match up for that to work properly. So I think that she just didn't quite get how the tiling was supposed to work. Let's fill in this big broad area though to see if that works. No, I don't think any of the tiling is lining up. See, just stair steps down like that. So at least these flat bits should tile with themselves repeatedly. How about the center column? Center column works. Horizontal one does not. No, almost does. It's very close, but it needs a little bit of touch up before that works. So yeah, I think it's like a cake or something like that was her idea. So close, but not really getting that kind of result. So these ones just don't have any chance to work, these interior edges. They would have to be the darkest color shade, or at least the dark pink shade. Okay. All right. Was that helpful to see how that stuff would be applied in Unity, you guys, to see what the tile map is applied like?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's going to be the end of our pixel art curriculum. So now you guys have a little basic introduction, not just how to do it, but how to make animated things, how to make tile sets, and that's easily more than half of doing pixel art asset production. The rest is knowing how it's going to work so that you can make it work reasonably, which is just down to a little bit of game development experience. Let's go ahead and take a look at our final project. Okay. Oh, I guess I didn't open the module. We're going to do for 3 weeks. We actually have 4 weeks left. So we're on week 13, 14, 15, 16. And we're going to do a 3-week project with it due the following week. So technically, all the work will be completed during this 15th week. And you might have an extra couple of days or something to fine tune it if you don't like exactly what you've produced. We're going to do a simulated project where we come up with a concept, we create a little style for it, and we make an asset or two for an imaginary game production. So this can give you an idea of the role of the concept artist within a game project. This week, we're going to come up with the idea and do some basic sketching and ideation. The following week, you guys are going to come up with better designs for specific things and look at art styles that might be relevant to you depending on your concept. And then the final week, you're going to produce an asset. So that might be pixel art, that might be a texture, that might be a painting. We'll have to see, depending on your idea. There's all sorts of different assets that you could make for your project. Okay? So let's take a look. Here is the assignment. Choose an appropriate game genre, brainstorm a concept for a potential original game. You'll need to furnish references, provide sketches of designs, and create a short written concept to sell your idea to the class. We'll pick our favorite and base the following week's assignment on those concepts. So this is not just a assignment for you individually, but it's also collective for the class. So you guys are going to try to come up with something interesting and inspiring. And we're probably not going to just pick one. We'll probably limit it down to like 2 or 3 that you can pick between. And then the following week's worth will be based on one of those 3. Okay? Any questions so far about this final project before I get into the details?
Not at the moment.
Cool. All right. So here are the requirements for this week. You only have 4 things you have to provide me. I want to see a sketch of the game world. Okay, we'll talk about what that means in a minute. A drawing of the gameplay. Okay, at least one drawing of the gameplay. Diagrams of specific mechanics. So if your ideas are mechanic-centric, then I want to see a diagram of how something should work. Okay, what does it do? This can be different depending on gameplay, but it can be as simple as a drawing of a piece and an arrow pointing at a place on a board, right? If you don't have very complicated mechanics. Or it could be something like hold X on this spool to crank the chain and the door over here opens, that sort of thing. And then finally, this is the part that we will use primarily to do our voting, a write-up of your concept, which really should just be 1 or 2 sentences, okay? So let me start with that one because that's the one that we can get started with today, and especially having a conversation today to help you get ideas flowing. This write-up of your concept needs to state a few things. You need to state the genre of your game. Is there anybody here who has not played any video games ever? Oh, thank goodness. Okay. Is there anybody here who does not know what a video game genre is? Cool. So then I've given a couple examples. Platformer, MOBA, rhythm game. Racing game would be another one. Turn-based tactics is another. First-person shooter is another. Third-person puzzle platformer is another. And it goes on and on and on. You're going to pick the genre of game based on your own interests and also based on the kind of things you want to draw or paint. Because keep in mind, if you were doing a third-person platformer, Banjo-Kazooie kind of thing, then you're going to have to draw 3-dimensional environments, so your drawings are going to have to be more 3-dimensional focused, and probably cartoon, right? Would be the sort of idea there, unless you're going to vastly change the kind of theming of that game. So if that's your, preferred sort of thing, then great. But if you want to draw industrial, realistic stuff, you've either got to completely reimagine the theme, or you should maybe pick a different genre of game that's more conducive to that, like a sim or a first-person shooter or something. Okay? Second thing that you've got to state is the audience you're targeting. Okay? This is probably a brand new concept to some of you, but if you were in graphic design, this would be one of your first considerations every time. Or if you were in a product design, this would be one of your first considerations every time. A game has an audience, just like a book or a movie has an audience, okay? And you need to appropriately target that audience. So what this means is if you're doing a rhythm game targeting children, it needs to be child appropriate, right? Probably that means bright colors and shiny lights and cartoon characters and everything's fun and expressive. It doesn't mean like, Edward Scissorhands the rhythm game, because that's not for children. It's too dark and bleak and violent and threatening looking. We're not going to want that, okay? Your target audience includes sometimes gender, every time age or age range, and usually an idea of what that group likes and what that group doesn't like, okay? So for instance, if I said we were targeting adults, but my game contains repetitious sing-song lyrics with very little complexity in music, does that sound like something adults would like?
Not really.
What group sounds like that would be targeted at them?
More on children.
Children, yeah, that's like what you get on Sesame Street and all of those kids shows and stuff. Adults don't like that stuff. In fact, if the adults are parents, they probably hear that stuff more than they want to already, and if you put that in your game, you're going to drive them away. Okay? Some YouTubers have. So also, if we were to say we're going to target like a child audience, putting a tense romantic relationship in there as one of the parts of your game's fiction would probably be a bad thing. But putting a sort of flirtatious thing where one character likes another and is having trouble even saying that out loud, that's a very sophomoric kind of idea. And that would be great for children or maybe even teens. But adults might not tolerate that kind of stuff. An adult is going to look at that sort of thing and just go, just freaking say you like her already. Come on. Let's, get the lead out. Hurry this up. They don't like that. They like more complex problems in their relationships than that. Okay? All right, so that's two parts. The game genre, the audience, which I want you to keep in mind the whole time. And then I want you to give it a name. Don't worry about a good name. Just give it a name so that we can identify it from others. Okay? And then tell us how your game works in just a couple of short sentences and what's fun about it. This is the part that we can do right now because probably you guys are fans of video games, or we'll even say practical board games and card games already. And we can use an existing one to form this sentence, which is what you're going to try to come up with for your own. Okay? So would somebody please volunteer one of their favorite games so that we might try this out?
Sekiro.
Okay. What is that?
Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, the Soulsborne game.
Okay. What is that?
It's Dark Souls, but Japanese.
Okay. So that was a good attempt at that sentence. Dark Souls but Japanese is at least a descriptor, but it requires that I already know what Dark Souls is. I do, but for the sake of playing devil's advocate, describe Dark Souls.
It's a third-person action game that's known for its difficulty.
That is perfect. That is perfect. Now, so describe the game that you originally said and add something to that sentence you just said that differentiates it.
Third-person action game where its main focus is Japanese style and parrying with swordplay.
Nice. That sounds cool. You've already done it. That was a great sentence. Okay, so that's how it works. Third-person action, focusing on parrying. And what's fun about it was kind of built right in there. I mean, swordplay. Swordplay is fun. So, way to go. Very good example. Someone wanted...
Is it like the logline assignment in Storyboard?
It is just like that, yes. Yep. except instead of focusing on story, we're focusing on gameplay. So yes, it's just like that. Let's try another one. Someone else got a favorite or preferred game they'd like to try this with? Borderlands. Okay. Would someone like to try to describe how Borderlands works and what's fun about it?
You're in a wasteland and you have unlimited guns to defeat as many things, anything that moves.
Okay, remember, focus on how it works first. So you jumped right to the fiction, which is, it needs to be in there, but it's a first-person shooter? Third-person? I actually forget. Is it first or...
First person, I think.
It's first? Okay. First-person shooter with a focus on character buildings and looting. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think the fun of Borderlands is that every enemy is kind of like a piñata, in that you kill them and all their delicious loots come out. Is that kind of the fun of Borderlands? Besides the visual style. Yeah? That and the comedy, that's true. Okay, so we'll have to say it's a first-person shooter, sort of dark comedy in which every enemy is filled with prizes. Something like that. Sound about right? And we're not really mentioning the innovative visual style or anything, but that's sort of the next week's work, that stylistic kind of concept. As a game concept, it's pretty straightforward and simple. Shoot the things and then change and upgrade your equipment. So it's almost first-person shooter meets adventure game, almost. Sort of like how like Fallout works, except a greater focus on the action, whereas like Fallout's like a greater focus on the exploration. Sound good? We want to try one more?
Yeah, maybe one more.
Let's do one more. Someone got another idea for a game that we should talk about? Warzone. Can you describe to me Warzone? I'm not familiar with it right away. I see 3 people jumped in real quick. Call of Duty Battle Royale. Oh, that's what it is Call of Duty Battle Royale. Oh, so it's like, what is it? PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds except Call of Duty? Okay. So then we got to describe what a Battle Royale game is, sort of. Is it the same thing where you're like 100 people and, you know, last person standing wins? Or is it teams? Pretty much? Okay. Is there anything that differentiates it from PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds besides the franchise label? Oh, there is? Like, what mechanically differentiates it? Oh no, the kill streaks are back. Oh no. You can buy players as in like your roster? Oh, in Revive. Okay. Interesting. That's an interesting concept. For a second though, I got a little excited that you were talking about like roster drafting through like buying, which is kind of a cool concept if you keep track of players' rankings accurately over time, that you want to play a really good game, so you spend a lot of money to draft someone who's got a really good rank to help you win that round. That's an interesting concept too. Might break the game, but who knows. Okay. So we've got a battle royale game with a monetary system and kill streaks. That's just about right, as long as you already know what a battle royale game is. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay.
Sal wants to say something.
Yeah.
So do you want us to answer each of those questions in the list?
Yes.
Or type up things or make up things or...
Yeah, I want you
trying
to
imagine the assignment properly.
Yeah, the write-up
Right.
is answering all 4 of these bullet points. So I need you to state the genre of the game, the audience, give it a name, and then write this sentence, which is a description about what it is and what's fun about it. Then the art requirements are each of these 3 bullet points above, which I'm going to describe a little bit more in detail in just a moment. Is that good? Answer his question?
Well, I'll see when you give the examples.
Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah, that was pretty good. So we're gonna need one of those. Get people excited. Try to think about the fun and how it works. Don't assume that people know too much about how games already function, but you can assume a little bit, like we know what some of the most basic kind of genres are. So if you say it's an adventure game, enough said, except what is special about it, what is unique about it. Or if you say that it's an RPG, that's enough said already, except if there is something like an action RPG or JRPG versus Western might be significant in that difference. Okay? Let's talk about the other requirements then. So, we're going to want one sketch of the game world. We're going to want one drawing of gameplay. We're going to want diagrams of mechanics. And I've got details of all of these things here. So for the game world, the environment or the game board is what we're looking for. Laid out pieces and players, potentially, depending on what you pick. And a sense of the theme and basic genre of the game. So this is almost supplied by any promotional shot of a video game, kind of gives this stuff in render as opposed to in drawing. So if we typed in anything like, what was that one called? Warzone, you just said? So we're going to do Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone, and just look at the pictures they give us. So like this drawn would be perfect, right? That's a nice action shot. It's showing players interacting with the game world. It's giving us a feeling of what it's like to play that game. Or really any of these things, right, are giving us a nice strong indication of what the gameplay is going to be like. It's going to be action oriented, it's going to be violent, it's going to be realistic, right? And there's going to be a lot of people. So cool, all that works. All right, I have a folder in Drive filled with concept. It's mostly filled with drawings and paintings, and it's to give you an idea of what real concept looks like, because the problem is if you search for concept art, what you're probably going to find instead is finished promotional artwork. You're not going to find concept art necessarily. So I'm going to open another tab and just type in concept art, just to see what we get in this image result. And sometimes we will, sometimes we won't. Like, that is not concept art. That is beautiful finished illustration. Okay? A concept art piece is going to be a lot simpler than that. This is not really concept art either. This is finished promotional, beautiful pieces of artwork. Even this might start to qualify as concept art, but it's still highly polished and finished. Concept art is not meant to do that. It's meant to inspire the production crew. So it needs to be simpler and faster and a lot more functional. This might qualify as concept art here. This would be sort of a mood and tone piece of concept art done for film oftentimes. Another problem is when you look up for concept art, you don't have a guarantee of what industry you're seeing the work from. And there's a big difference in concept art from games, from television animation, from movies, and from live movies versus animated movies. All of those are different. So they're saying this sort of thing here, is concept art for the Star Wars movie that starred her. I forget the name of it. No, it isn't. No, that's not how that works. Film does not do that. They don't need to do that. They're going to get their lighting from a set or a director of photography. They're not going to get their lighting from a painting. They don't need to do that. And also, why would they do that? They're going to have a real environment to film in. So this is definitely not concept for a movie. It's sort of a painting done following that movie to impress people. Okay? But it's not how film works. Games kind of work that way because we've got to create everything. So just to be aware that when you search for concept art, you're going to get a lot of different looking stuff that doesn't really represent what concept is or is for. This is better. Okay? Here are some line drawing sketches with variations and then a finished character on the right hand side. This is more like what concept art is. It's still highly polished and well presented though. Okay? So all of that can be a bit misleading. This sort of thing, that's not concept art. That's the progress of someone's individual painting. Okay, which is fine. This is concept art. That's the same base male head with different facial hair patterns and haircut patterns. The part of that that's concept is the facial hair and haircut patterns, not the illustration, not the background, not the way they toned it. None of that. That's just presentation for here's a haircut and here's a beard. Okay? So, yeah. Any questions about that? Like what I'm talking about, like what is and is not concept, how misleading it can be? That's an illustration, not a concept. That's an illustration, not a concept. This is, I don't know, some still from a movie. It's not a concept either. These are character designs. That is a kind of concept, but this is the end of the road character design. Like this is the finished idea of what these characters need to look like. There's a lot of supporting drawings that came before that we're not seeing. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is concept. So these are shape variations, color variation, detail variations on the same object. This is concept at the top. This is design progress. This is rendering progress. This is the final image. Okay? This week we're doing concept, as in the very top part. Next week it's a combination of step 1 and step 2, design, right? Tacking down exactly what you want to do by changing it a little bit. Storyboard is concept art, yes, but the concept is this is the sequence of events, right? So storyboards are concept for the pacing, for the event sequence. They're not concept for what we're going to see necessarily. Maybe camera and shot angle and editing choice. Yeah, that's probably true. Let's try it. Early concept art for... Okay, no. That's very funny, but that's a finished render. Let's see. No way. They didn't draw E.T.'s facial expressions. Come on. Maybe. Yes, probably. Okay, so this is probably true. Because Pixar definitely draws everything that they produce before they ever do 3D renders. That's probably what Buzz Lightyear looked like fairly early into their idea for Toy Story. So that one's probably accurate. This might be accurate for Shrek. This or this. That's probably more likely what they had initially when thinking about Shrek. All right, see you later. Probably not. What is this for? Oh, this is like SpongeBob concept, sure. Interesting thing about like a cartoon, like a television cartoon, is their concepts and their final product don't look very different because they're all drawings and they're all exaggerated fun drawings. So like sometimes you can see 1-to-1, but this is probably like early Hillenburg drawings of those characters before the design process happened, right? So this is just straight out of his head, and then later on a design process happened that turned them into the more recognizable characters. Or this is someone doing it after SpongeBob and just kind of making it look like it's concept. Let's take a look at the folder. Okay. So I went through and searched on ArtStation. I recommend ArtStation, by the way, for looking at concept, although be wary of the label on things, and found some good examples of various stages of concept. So this is a good example of trying out different personalities and character types within a certain fiction. And how many of these are they going to use? Maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe none. Don't know. But you can see some similar kinds of body types and facial types in here, which is showing that they're playing with ideas. Like this bearded guy is kind of over here as well, and he's kind of down here again, right? The one that has the forked beard and holding things out is kind of up here and kind of down here also. So you can see some repeated sort of ideas being played around with. Here is the design process and finished product for this tavern owner concept that this person did. So this would be like next week and the final week. The final would be something like this. Here's a finished character painting. That would be our asset that we would be delivering. Then the design process would be something like this, where we start messing around with and interchanging different features, but we'd probably want to see the final drawing of this before the rendering. Here we've got tavern concept. So is it going to be inside of a giant bottle, or made up of barrels, or maybe just barrels in the front, or maybe one on the roof, or some combination of all those things? And you can see them just kind of playing with ideas. And that's the whole point of concept. Concept is for playing with your idea. It's for changing it, tweaking it, adding and taking things away to try to get an idea of the final thing that you're going to execute. This is more like an asset. If this was a sim building game or a strategy game, then you would have this isometric grid, and these assets sat down inside of that isometric grid. Obviously, this is not a finished asset, but it's very close to what the finished asset would probably look like once it's painted. Here's 4 stages of progress in this illustration concept. So we've got rough sketching for composition and features. Up here is the really first rough stage. Then just below that is trying to figure out the composition. Okay, stage 2, refine the thumbnail to show details and design. This would be almost ready to go. Then early coloring and all the details. So nice concept sort of progress for a single illustration. If it's a part of a game or a film, I don't know, but it's a nice kind of process. And there's the big finished. Here is some concept from Hearthstone, and I'm not sure where this appeared, probably in a cutscene or something, but these are really nice finished illustrations for what will eventually be some asset in a cutscene or in a background or in a card maybe, or something like that. And you can see there's an element of diagram in here as well, because some parts of that fiction are important. They've got this League of Explorers logo present on both of these, and then they've also got Reno's hat, and he's a character in this Saviors of Uldaman kind of arc that they have in Hearthstone. So there's a little bit of diagram happening here as well. Here's some more from the same sort of thing, with some variations and explanations of what things are. And a little bit of written text to say, this is what this person is. Uses a snake-tongued sword. Oh, that's what that is? Oh, I see, it's forked on the end. So it's perfectly reasonable in your concept to write little notes all over it to kind of explain the direction you're going in case it's not exactly what the art director is looking for. Okay. Here's a few more. Got a mummy gator and a crocodile warrior. I like that. Okay, and a few enemies. You can actually see, if you look really closely, underneath the finished illustration, you can see the other rougher illustration that was here and sort of dimmed out so that the person could draw on top of it. If we were to see their early concepts, it would be closer to that dimmed out illustration. And in each set, you can see little kind of shadows of that other past behind there. I'm not sure why they left them in. Maybe it just didn't matter, or maybe they kind of wanted to create an effect. Either way, it's kind of cool. So you can look through all that if you like. Oh, this is an action one, okay? So here, and I'm not sure if this is for a short film or for some part of the Hearthstone game, but I know that full animated characters are not a part of the Hearthstone game. So this is probably concept for some cutscene. This is an action reference. So we've got these characters and they're doing things like wearing things on their head or popping up out of sand. And there's like this arrow that says, here's how this would work. This guy would pop up underneath this mound and he's going to be visible under this falling sand. This is diagramming. Okay, so when I refer to diagramming, this is what I mean. If you've got some special mechanic in mind, show me how it works. You may even need a before and an after state. Okay. Here's a really good example of concept for an existing game to add new areas and content. That board back there is exactly the layout of the Hearthstone game, but every time the corners here are replaced by something else when they theme it. And sometimes little details like the gutters over here might be themed, or the play field might have a slightly different texture, or the table might change in the background. But those 4 bits are the important parts. So this person has sketched over the top of those corners to theme it, and I think that's like the Halloween theme or something. And so the finished asset in this case is going to be very close to those. It's just going to be a full rendered version of those with animatable, separatable parts. Just like that. And you can see how some other things have changed now. There's leaves in the background here. The color has changed. There's a little bit of moss encroaching on the gameplay area, but they're all subtle compared to these designs. I don't remember what this is for, but this is an idea of detail sketches and little props and background elements. Okay, here's some paintings of the same. So these are very necessary when you're going to fill up an entire game world. Here we've got some more diagramming happening. The chains pull down, the gate raises up behind the facade. So they're explaining how this would animate. Okay. Sometimes you have cutaways like this to show what's going to go inside of an environment. I've got a number of these animated GIFs that go through all the various stages of illustration, just so you can remember what we did in that Overcooked versus Animal Crossing sort of thing, where we want to fill in all of the details with these shapes and then apply shadows and textures in succeeding steps. And that's kind of what's going on here, with the addition of your own sketch that you probably want to use. Here's an example of an asset, a parallaxing background. Here's that asset broken up into the actual deliverable pieces, which are each of them a texture and little details. This is very similar to what we just did with tile sets, only done with much higher resolution information. Here's a bunch of concepts for environments. You can see that there's some similarity between them. They've all got a little character. They've all got a small house. They've all got a big house. So this is almost like a cartoonized version of like the Warcraft tactical, what's that freaking called? The top-down tactical game, Warcraft. No, I'm thinking of just Warcraft, but I'm blanking on the genre. What's that genre?
Tactical strategy.
Yeah, it's a strategy game, right? Just like a live strategy game. Real-time strategy. Jeez, there we go. So this is almost like concept from ground level of like real-time strategy game units and houses and stuff. Okay? The concept being done here is mostly just for color and texture and proportion. This is a good sort of example of a mock-up. So a mock-up is when you take the layout of existing games and you start to apply your own details and features to it. So I don't know what type of game this is, obviously some sort of mobile game, but they're taking the layout of this game and saying like, this is where all the buttons go, but the part of their concept is mostly in the background. And you absolutely can do that. So if you're gonna make your own version of like, let's say Bejeweled or something, then you can take screenshots of Bejeweled and just draw and paint right over the top of them. And you should. Here are some strategy buildings. The concept you can see is over here when they were playing with black and white silhouettes to get the idea. And then this is more like the finished illustration, so the finished designs. Another one where we're mocking up using an existing game's layout. There's another one of the game world, sort of a drawing of the overworld. This one is more film and animation centric, but this is Psychiatrist's house. These are sketches of potential houses and color concepts. Here are details within the house, all stylized. This is a lot more film, but you know, the kind of thing that we would be doing. Here's a breakaway of this wagon, maybe because they're going to make it modular. Similar to the keys, yes. Coming up with the idea, selling us on the idea, so that we can then do a design pass next week, which is mostly about shapes, colors, and the kind of superficiality of the thing. And then the final week, making finished drawings and paintings. Using other people's designs, potentially. Okay. Here are some screen layouts. Again, I'm not entirely certain about the genre of the game, but this is a pretty normal thing to do, to say, here's where the buttons and map goes, here's a character, this is the game grid. These are informational things like health and magic and stuff like that, or maybe this one is, or this one could be experience. This is a pretty normal thing in concept as well. Hopefully so here's a few more different experimental views. And then I have this one, which is their final delivery of this concept of, here's a button panel down here, the gameplay area, and probably this is like either your character or the villain and some sort of progression track. It'd be nice if it was labeled, but yeah. Oh, and here's an example of some gameplay. So we've got like a highlighted tile, something going from what appears to be your toolbar or inventory dragged onto that tile. Okay. Here's an example of a way that you can make something look a little bit more like a game. Those are little placards above everybody's head, and they're also highlighted. That's a great way to make something look like it is genuinely a game right now that you could be playing. So that's what we're aiming for in our final week, is not just to make it look nice, but to make it look plausible. Here's another kind of concept. We've got diagrams, we've got details, and then we've got the final in the middle, along with the color palette has been provided and nice rendered environment. For what purpose? I'm not exactly sure, but it looks really good. Here's another process of sketch to design to finish. And of course, these are in Google Drive, so you guys can explore like crazy. Here's variations on a prop, and on another prop, and on another prop, and on another. Oh, wait, this one's the final designs for all of them. And this one's the final rendering for all of them. Okay, this is ones that I worked on a project. I thought I'd just do one that was particular to me to give you an idea of how I use concept. Up in the upper left are drawings of the potential enemies and objects that we were going to use. When we picked a direction, which turned out to be more animal-like, we started to render and design them out like this. This is final design. And then I did this breakout and animation list based on how they were going to function in the game. And my artist was responsible for illustrating all the individual pieces, as I've shown here, and then I would assemble them and animate them. And so the final product is one of these little ball guys that can snap his jaw, his eyes can turn different colors, his ears can move, and he can explode, I think it was. And it's all based on just thinking that we needed a ball floating character and then going through this whole design process. And it's compared to this dog because that dog's the main character. And the whole mechanic is that his head is a cube that has physics on it. This is the design process for that main character. I was brought on the project when they already had one that was pretty lackluster and they needed to redo it. And so I did a bunch of sketches and drawings, eventually doing detail and proportion experiment like this. When we liked it, we started doing character and personality work, then breaking it into a formula that would make it reproducible for other artists. Up here is a design sheet in the upper right, and then finally our finished product down over here. And then over on the left are various splash pages for when he gets killed in a level. They wanted a funny cartoon drawing of him being killed, and so I made a bunch of those, and they were very fun to do. Okay. Does that give you a good idea of what we're doing?
So, Go ahead, Alan.
Oh no, I just said I believe so.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So what you're basically saying is we have to have a write up of our concept, so like kind of like a written document, I'm guessing.
One or two sentences only, please.
Okay, that describes all that.
Yeah.
And then you want us to have from what it looks like, two drawings. One that's about the game world. One that's kind of signifies the gameplay in some way.
And then diagrams. It's pretty likely you're going to need some kind of diagram if your idea is anything even slightly different from a completely already existing game. So what I want you guys to do is think of, for instance, games that you like and what could you change about them. So if you like, let's say, I don't know, just pick something generic. If you like Mario Brothers, right, jumping on platforms and eating mushrooms and stuff like that, fine. Could we theme that different? Could, instead of being an Italian plumber, could it be a corgi dog? And instead of eating mushrooms, could it eat garbage and take place in a city? Would all of that work? Would that track? Maybe, maybe not. There's probably a lot to brainstorm to figure out how that concept would work out. But then you're going to need diagrams about how that works. If the dog gets bigger from eating garbage, right? Okay, why? But who cares? It always worked in Mario. Okay, or maybe instead of getting bigger, it can turn into different breeds of dog for some reason, or maybe it wears different collars to get different temporary special effects, the way Mario can wear hats and costumes. We'd need a diagram for that. So we would need to see collar equals dog can breathe fire, or collar equals dog can fly now, that sort of thing. Okay, so 3 different kinds of drawing: game world, gameplay, and diagram, and then 1 short write-up.
Okay.
The minimum is 1 for each one, but you should probably do more than 1. Right? You should probably do more than 1 sketch of the game world. You should probably do more than 1 drawing of gameplay. You should probably do a few diagrams, but the minimum is 1 for each.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you, Tabor.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else questions?
So we just come up with concept art, like a rough drawing,
Yep.
and you want us to include like the game art. And so, do you want us to give you like two drawings, or so 2 things, and then show how the art works, the game works?
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna be doing all of this for this next week.
Yes. All of it rough, all of it not very polished and just straight out of your head, because we're going to look at all of them together and we're going to pick our favorites. And based on our favorites, we're going to produce the next week's work on those favorites only. So although everyone's doing the work, we'll only take a couple of people's concepts to run with, and then everyone's work is based on just those concepts. So that's the nature of production, is that you rarely do all of your own work just by yourself. Typically you collaborate with people. So we're going to try to make that collaboration work by giving us a bunch of options and then just picking the ones that are the most promising to us. Okay?
So you want us to do a game art, and do we have like three or 4 drawings to do?
A minimum, yeah. Minimum about 3. And then a little write-up. By the way, for the written portion of this, you guys, if you want to make a Google Doc, that's perfectly fine, just that you can share with us. Or if you want to make just a text document, or even just write it in a Photoshop file just so that I can open up and read it, any of those are good, just so that you can submit it in the folder. But I'd recommend a Google Doc just because you can create it right there in the folder and just write it in. Any other questions? And remember that we are going to have time to do a lot of demonstrations of how this works on Friday. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing Friday.
It makes sense. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that just like the Gaming 90 class?
I'm not familiar with 90.
I'm sorry, Gaming 80.
I mean, I think we've probably done this in 80 at some point. I tend to do this in a few classes because it's sort of like the place where you put it all together at the end of a course. We learn all these basic skills and then we want to apply it to actual game development. Otherwise, we're sort of learning in a vacuum. So probably it's similar to that, yeah. All right, you guys, any last minute questions before I stop recording?
Okay, see you on Friday.
All right. Thank you, guys.